Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Katie Hadiaris. She is a workplace wellness coach and strategist and founder of Work is Not Family. She helps professionals stop absorbing the emotions, urgency, and dysfunction of others so they have more time and energy for their body, relationships, and life outside work. So we'll explore with her how to know if you are in a toxic workplace versus just feeling stressed, subtle signs of a narcissistic boss, and how to stop overcaring without blowing up your career. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Katie. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe, a lot of professionals across the globe in workplaces will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about workplace absorption and much more around this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure, absolutely. So my background is I spent 15 years in a corporate environment in a large insurance company and sort of, climbed the ladder, moved up, took on a team, learned a lot about leadership, but always really felt like this wasn't what I was supposed to do. Maybe I should be doing something else. And so around the time COVID hit, when people were starting to sort of reshuffle and try new things, I took that as an opportunity and switched industries and started recruiting for insurance companies. So I was in my 40s. I pivoted and started working for a much smaller company. They didn't have a lot of rules and policies and procedures. They didn't have HR, but I jumped right in and pretty quickly into that experience realized that it was different. There was something that was different. I just didn't really know what. My boss liked me and started to show favoritism to me. And he was saying a lot of things like, this has been your home all along. Where have you been? You're such a great culture fit here. You're going to make so much money here. Like really telling me everything that I wanted to hear. So it was great for a while. Yet over time, my body started to have a reaction to that. It started to build. His attention started to increase slowly over time. So what started as a singular message to me that he would send over the computer turned into 5 a day, then 10 a day, then stopping by my desk multiple times a day, then texting me on nights and weekends, like just very incremental changes in how he acted to me over time started to add up and started to make my nervous system react. I didn't understand trauma. I didn't know about nervous system. I didn't really even know about narcissism at the time. So I was just trying to absorb everything around me, be a good employee, do what I needed to do to succeed, do what I needed to do to make money and take care of my family, and just really thought that I was doing everything right, I guess you could say. But my body was really telling me something different. Started to send these signals that got more and more intense over time until eventually I realized, and my body realized, that it was bringing up trauma from a sexual assault that had happened 20 years prior. So I was in this situation. I had a male boss in a position of power. I went to leadership. I felt dismissed by them. 20 years before, I had been sexually assaulted by a male coworker. I went to the police. I was dismissed by them, and everything sort of crumbled at that time for me. So I'll pause there because I know that's a lot.
Not at all, not at all. That's your story, Katie. And a lot of people can understand their situation better through stories like yours and many others. But how does that relate to the workplace absorption. How do I know that this one particular place is indeed a good place, that people are, are almost like family, though one should not never mistake that as family. And another place is not at all a good workplace, in spite of them telling, that it's like a family. How do I differentiate? Should we leave it to the nervous system, or should we leave it to our own intellect, intuition, and understand it from that point of view?
Yeah, I mean, such a good question. And I do think our nervous system is really the guide. So after this workplace, I ended up getting into human resources and consulting. So I started working with a lot of different businesses, started meeting a lot of different employers, being involved in employee relations, meeting with employment attorneys. And I really started to study employment law and employment systems and how this actually worked. And it helped me process my own experience through that lens. And what I have learned, because at the same time I was studying trauma and the nervous system and how to regulate ourselves, is that really, when I look back, my body had been alerting me for a long time that it didn't feel safe and it was picking up on threats. And instead of being in tune with the signals and what I was experiencing in my body, I came up in my head and tried to rationalize it away and work harder and push harder and just be more responsible and close more cases at work, make more money. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, I was really taught that as a child to absorb everything around me in order to feel safe. So be really responsible, clean the house, do all of these things, because as a child, that's how I got my emotional needs met. And that's how I felt safe. Really just absorb everything that was going on around me, which is what a lot of high performers do. That's the reason we're high performers in the first place. That's the reason that we are successful, because we do work hard and we are responsible and we are competent. So now when I look at it though, that's really the difference in just how we show up, is understanding what's going on in the nervous system so we know what's driving those behaviors. Because if you do end up in a workplace that's dysfunctional or toxic, and let me tell you, most of them are at least mildly dysfunctional. Running a business is hard, and it's not a family, and most families are dysfunctional too. But when you end up in a place where there are people in positions of power, there's money at play, there's what you do with your time, there's all of these dynamics at play. We are going to bring these behaviors with us that have always made us feel safe. And for a lot of high performers, that is absorbing all of the dysfunctions and the urgency and the emotions around us. And our body knows that we're doing that before our head does.
Absolutely, Katie. So is it that, high performers have uh, higher absorption rates from workplaces, or is it the same for everyone? Some people are, or is it some people are immune to it and some people are not? They absorb it. How does it work? This absorption, workplace absorption thing work at the workplace?
I think we all have different protective behaviors. So, absorbing other people's emotions or actions is what I would call a protective behavior. And it's what we learn in childhood, like I said, as a way to feel safe. So, not everybody learns to do that as a child. Some people will just disengage. That's how they protect themselves. Some people will leave the job. Some people will lie or manipulate. And they never really learn to take responsibility and absorb what's going on around them. So then they are not going to do that in a workplace because that's not their protective behavior. But what I have learned from working with a lot of high performers is that it's those same reasons why you are successful and why you are considered a top performer really does have to do with absorption.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how can you talked about two things? One is the, your earlier trauma. People can go through certain things in life, and then that can reflect in later decision making at whichever place. And some people, the workplace toxicity itself is too much. In isolation also, if we look at it, that is too much. How can people evaluate themselves, firstly from the workplace culture itself, and protect themselves from this absorption? And second, also evaluate if they are having anything from the past which will increase the amount of absorption for them in the same situation with those who have not been through that thing earlier in life. What is your advice here for people who may have their own different cases for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I help people with, because it's complicated and it's complex. I mean, we are talking about behaviors that we learned in childhood that have now become our default behaviors. So the autonomic nervous system is getting involved, which means it's happening automatically. We don't even really have to think about it. The brain does this process called neuroception, where it's constantly scanning your environment, trying to figure out if you are safe or if you are in a dangerous situation. And if it picks up on anything that indicates there is a threat, then your autonomic nervous system is going to take over, which is going to put these protective behaviors, it's going to start these protective behaviors. So you have to kind of be aware of all of that. You know, we talk a lot about self-awareness in the workplace and self-awareness for leaders. And I used to think that I was really self-aware. And I think actually what's the statistic that like 95% of people think they're self-aware and only 5% are? It's like some crazy statistic. But the way I think about that now is if you don't understand what's going on in your nervous system, if you don't know how to tell which nervous system state you're in, if you're not even really aware of the physical sensations that come up when you are triggered, then you're not really that self-aware of what's going on inside of your body. So that's really where it starts. It's really getting out of our head, getting into our body, starting to pay attention to the sensations that come up in different situations. So there may be one boss that you feel really calm and confident and at peace with. And then you might have another one who's constantly making you feel anxious and on edge and like you're walking on eggshells. That's for a reason. That's your body trying to tell you something. So that's where we have to start.
Absolutely. So, how do you help professionals who come to you for your help? What are their general concerns, their questions, the help that they need from you? How do you help them so that others also who will listen to this particular episode can, understand things for themselves?
A lot of people that I work with go beyond just traditional career coaching. So the work that I do now, it's not interview prep, it's not resume writing, even looking for another job. That's a different side of career coaching, when people know, hey, I am looking for a new job and I need help getting there. The people that I work with are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This doesn't feel right here, but also leaving doesn't feel right. Or I have all of these responsibilities and I'm fearful that if I leave, it's going to hurt my family. And so they really have this internal conflict of, I don't really know where I am in my life. They're not living in alignment, basically. And it's affecting their life at work. They're really emotionally activated a lot of time at work. And then they go home and they're really either continue to stay emotionally activated and be really, irritated or snap at people at home, or they just end up detaching because their body's so exhausted of living that way. So it ends up affecting them in work and also outside of work. It starts hurting their relationship with their family, with their children, with their spouse. They don't really want to do any social activities. They don't really have any energy. I mean, our jobs can just have such a big impact on our entire lives. So the people that I work with come to me and they're like, I can't live like this anymore, but I know if I just get another job, I'm going to be the same person. It's really not the job, it's what's happening inside of me, and that's what they need help with. So that's what I help them with.
Absolutely, absolutely, Katie. So in today's time, people now know the truth also. But when someone uses that work is family, how should one understand that whenever or wherever it is used?
It's so loaded because a lot of companies still say it. And I think sometimes the intent is good. Like they're not really thinking about it. I think what a lot of companies mean is like, we care about each other here. We look after each other. We like spending time together. I think that's the intent. We're a close-knit group. But in reality, healthy families and healthy workplaces operate very differently. So healthy workplaces are really about being super clear on roles and responsibilities, setting very clear expectations, holding people accountable to those. And guess what? If you're an employee that's not meeting your expectations after a certain amount of time, you're not going to be allowed to work there anymore. Like, that's not how families work. We don't fire family members. We don't put family members on a PIP. In healthy families, we do love and support and sit down and talk things through and share feelings and really get to know each other. That is a line that in the professional world, you don't always want to cross. Like, we don't really always want to know everything that's going on with our employees. It's none of our business a lot of the time. So I think people are starting to wake up to it. The more and more we hear that, it really can be a red flag. So maybe if you hear someone say that, ask them, well, what do you mean by that? How does that show up here in this workplace? How do you make sure professional boundaries aren't getting blurred because you're saying that? Because in my situation that I was in, the boundaries were blurred on purpose, and that was to have control, and that was to abuse, and that was to manipulate. So if you're in a situation where either you work at a place or you're interviewing for a place or you hear people say we're like a family here, I would ask them what they mean by that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what does your organization, you are the founder of Work is Not Family, what is this all about?
So I am a workplace wellness coach and strategist. So I look at work from a wellness perspective. So I've done leadership coaching and leadership training and recruiting, and I've done all that. There's a lot of professional development available to people in the workplace. And I think all of that is great and has its place. What I realized through my own experience is there's not a lot of help or resources for wellness in the workplace and how to have a healthy relationship with work, how to be able to set boundaries, how to leave work at work so that you can go home and be present with your actual family and the people that you love and care about. You can be present with them and you can leave work at work. So that is one thing that I help people do, and that's all through nervous system work. But I also say that I'm a strategist because we do need to navigate our careers with strategy. Another thing, like, we don't navigate necessarily our families with strategy. That's more emotionally driven. But what happens to people is we end up navigating our careers with emotions because we're triggered all the time. We have all of these past experiences and this past conditioning and protective behaviors come up, and we end up reacting emotionally a lot of times. And I want us to take our power back there and start navigating our careers with strategy and really being intentional about it. And the first way that we do that is to see that we are not a family here, that work is a system that is made for labor, not love. And it is really a contract. It's an agreement. You are agreeing as an employee to perform these duties, and your employer is agreeing to pay you for it. And that's it. That's the agreement. And when you start to think about it like that, you can start to detach yourself and detach your identity from your job and see it for what it is, which means you can still go to work and do a good job and be effective. And then you can leave it there and go home and enjoy your life.
Absolutely, absolutely, Katie. There is so much to learn about all this from you, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of companies and professionals would like to connect with you, take your help, be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
The best way to do so is to go to my website, which is workisnotfamily.com. And right when you go to my webpage, you'll see that I offer a free weekly training. So as I talked about, learning how to leave work at work is sort of where we get started here. So I offer a free weekly training over Zoom on how to leave work at work. I teach people why you can't, like what's actually happening inside your body and your nervous system, why the common advice that you're going to get is not going to work. It actually may be hurting you more than it's helping you, and what shifts you can start making immediately to start feeling a little bit better and start separating yourself from your job, like we talked about. So that would be my recommendation. Sign up for that training and come meet with me and let's talk about it.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.